Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this digital Central European FP&A Board. Today we'll be talking about the roadmap for the analytical transformation of controlling an FP&A function. My name is Hans Gobin, I'm FP&A Trends Ambassador, and today I'll be facilitating this meeting. Just for information, we have over 350 people joining us today and a great panel of 4 members. So moving on. This is a slide on previous meetings we've had before in the geography, so please take some time to digest it in your own time. What will we be talking about today? So today's roadmap for analytical transformation, best-in-class FP&A, the maturity model, best practices to moving to the next stage of your maturity model, the leading stage of FP&A maturity model. We'll have lots of examples in the last 2 presentations I've just mentioned, and then we will go on to talk about practical case studies in FP&A transformation. Process enhancement, very important for moving your maturity model to the next stage. And then we'll do conclusions, recommendation, and then we will finish off with a very exciting Q&A session at the end. So, it is now a good time for me to introduce to you our panel, our 4 panelists. So, members of the panel, if you can join me with your webcam, please, whilst I introduce you to our audience. First, we have Larissa Melnichuk, who's founder and CEO at FP&A Trends Group and International FP&A Board. Today, Larissa will talk to us about best practices to moving to the next stage of our maturity model. Larissa, great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Hans. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here as a speaker this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. We'll move on to our next presenter, which is Wojciech Porewski, Vice President Finance at Hitachi Energy. And Wojciech will today talk to us about the leading stage of FP&A maturity model with lots of examples, of course. Wojciech, great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we move on to our 3rd panelist, which is David Moreira, CFO at Motesk. David will share with us 3 practical case studies in FP&A transformation and 3 different levels of maturity as well. David, great to have you with us. Looking forward to your slides as well.
Thanks, Hans. Hello, world. I'm really happy to be with you all today.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. And last but not least, we have Tim Kroes, who's process mining lead at Protiviti in Germany. And Tim will take us through the very important around process enhancement for moving your maturity model to the next level. Tim, you're very welcome. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Hans. Great to be here.
You will agree we've got 4 great panelists today and a lot of insightful presentation to come, and of course the questions and answers as well. So people, please start sending your questions if you have any, or wait till we have the first presentation and then you can do so. Members of the panel, if you can turn your webcam off, I've got a few housekeeping slides and then we will start our presentation. So moving on. So International FP&A Board, as you all know, we are in 27 cities, 16 countries and 4 continents. Today, we're bringing the Central and Eastern Europe meeting together. Just to highlight there, best practice workshop and FP&A consultancy is also what we're doing now. A reminder to our attendees today, it is a 90 minutes webinar. We have 4 great polling questions. We want your insight, so please, when I launch it, please vote. It is interactive Q&A session as well, as I mentioned earlier on. Use the chat box to ask us any question around FP&A transformation or after each presentation. Please direct it to who you want the question to be answered from. Please network with us via LinkedIn. The presentation is available to download in handouts, and you will also receive a copy of the recording and a copy of the presentation within 2 days of our meeting. When I finish and close the meeting today, you will get a pop-up feedback session. So please give us another minute or so of your time. Give us some feedback as to how well we did, and also what would you like to hear in our next presentation or next meeting. It is now a good time to thank our technology partner today, Unit 4. Of course, we all know Unit 4, global leader in enterprise cloud software for people-centric organizations. So thank you very much, Unit 4. Our global recruitment partner, Robert Half. We all know Robert Half as one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies as well. So thank you. So before we start our main presentation, I would like to highlight to you what is best-in-class FP&A, and also talk to you a little bit as an introduction to the FP&A Maturity Model. I think the key thing is, we had the FP&A Trend Survey 2021's results come out, which says only 12.5% of organizations spend more than 40% of their time on value-adding activities. So very important, very, very important. Value-adding activities is very, very low on that scale. 70% of organizations produce annual plan in less than 3 months. So 30% are taking more than 3 months to do their budget. This is where we're losing time. 5% of organizations have a single data source for planning and forecasting. So I've given you a few stats there from the survey. There's a lot more for you to go through. But all of this bring us to why we needed to look at the maturity model. To address these challenges, we conducted our survey and the white paper, which is the maturity board model, and looked at how organizations are currently transforming from traditional to a modern FBNA. What this survey shows us and the white paper, it's guidelines and roadmap for you to adopt, communicate, implement your particular FP&A journey to excellence, practical steps you can take in each of the categories, how you move from one level to the next. And of course, we have Larissa, Wojciech, David, as well as Tim talking about that in a bit of detail. Latest technological trends, case studies, global data from over 500 organizations, and of course, how it all aligns to FPNA. So now, if I move on, so what is best-in-class FP&A? What were the key findings from the model? The first one there, the traditional methods of budgeting and forecasting have rapidly become unfit for purpose before even COVID struck us. So what are best-in-class FP&A doing in this arena? Best-in-class FP&A is about agility and ability to orient planning activity to the needs and cycle of products and services, not just to financial year ends and traditional year end. So we're now thinking more about product life cycles, services life cycles. Of course, we've got a new wave of FP&A leaders who are influencing the entire organization culture. So you have a lot of soft skills coming into play, not just traditional functioning accounting skills. Rapid and wide-reaching technological development in FP&A has brought organizations to within the reach of the decision-making machine, which is supported by human judgment. Let's not forget that. Knowledge, but also optimizes tactics and strategies. And we will look at some of it in a bit. Of course, improving FP&A organization can adopt major transformation program. However, leading organizations have followed a series of individual steps in order to build credibility and momentum. And finally, the ultimate capability of FP&A is to play scenarios in real time to model, compare, refine business operation and opportunities. So very important to be able to play scenario planning in real time. This is the FP&A maturity model. You could see developing stage, intermediate, leading stage, and then you've also got At the top, the basic level, developing, defined, advanced, and leading stage. And then we talk about leadership, functional skills, business partnering, processes, data, and analytics. I will draw your attention to the leading stage here, what organizations are doing, but I will let Larissa, Wojciech, Tim, and David take you through these in a bit more detail. So that's all from me. And I would like to now reintroduce you to Larissa Melnichuk, founder and CEO, FP&A Trends Group at the International FP&A Board, who will talk to us about best practices to moving to the next stage of your maturity model. Thank you very much, Larissa. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Hans. Welcome, everyone. And the presentation is best practices to move into the next stage of your maturity model. If we move to the next one, very quickly, I would like to ask you the question. So what is the biggest challenge at the moment for FP&A teams around the globe? And with this maturity model and with FP&A board meetings, I travel to 16 countries and 27 cities to ask exactly those questions. And the model that you see, it was at first developed in London over 4 years ago, but then it was adjusted at all of those cities around the globe, including Asia, Australia, North America, Middle East, and Europe. So the main question that people are asking, how we can move to the next step. And if people ask me, what is the biggest challenge at the moment and what is the biggest checking point for us to see where the company is? It's obviously your ability to place scenarios, your ability to refocus and replan quickly. Not only to play scenarios practically in real time or very, very quickly, but also multidimensionally and collaboratively. So this is the biggest challenge. And this slide demonstrates that obviously our traditional FP&A is not set for this. Traditional management accounting or traditional controlling is not working. So if we move on to the next slide, what I would like to do here today, I would like to look at every dimension of our maturity model, and there are 6 dimensions, 3 soft and 3 hard analytical dimensions. And I would like to demonstrate how we can move, let's say, from developing state to intermediate. There are some methods how we can move, how we can make this step change, and it's definitely working. But I will give you examples from leading companies and those companies that used partial approach, but also moved to the next stage because they started the journey. So when we look at the dimension of leadership, obviously everything starts from the top. We all know this. But the interesting thing that we are noticing at the moment, that also the culture is changing also from the side and from the bottom with help of analytics and with help of FP&A business partnering or finance partnering as well. So a new wave of FP&A leaders is influencing the entire organizational culture, bringing a combination of analytics and soft skills to influence how executives can make decisions. What I noticed also that around the globe, there are some leading CFOs who are very serious about data management, data analytics. They even starting to receive second education in data science. If not, they're hiring data scientists and they're working with IT in much more unusual way than classical CFO. So definitely it's happening right now. So let us move on to the next dimension. And the next dimension is functional skills. So if classically all of us in accounting and finance, analytical people, we are analysts, but in reality, it's not enough anymore. We are talking about 5 key roles in FP&A. You can see all of them here. But I would like to pay attention in the content of my presentation to particular 2 roles, the new emerging roles. The first one is FP&A data scientist. Not just a data scientist, you are inviting graduates from a data science profession, but those people that understand both finance and data science world. We call them the bridges. Those people that will create the process in order for us to work with data, to identify the key drivers for driver-based model, and for us to bring data into decision-making and FP&A. And of course, another one which is quite important is FP&A data scientist. FP&A data architect. Even not data architect, we call this FP&A architect. It's the bridge between IT, data scientists, and finance. So this is the person who will create driver-based model, but also the architect will build the whole architecture around your decision-making cycle. There are many examples of how it's happening, and I see both worlds when people are not from finance, but they are learning finance, and when people in finance learning those new skills. But obviously storytelling is important, and influencing, it comes from all of these. So if we move to the next stage, the next dimension, and the next dimension, it's all about business partnering and collaboration. Especially important right now when so many of us are working from home and global organizations are working from home in different parts of the world. And here I would like to give some interesting examples, those case studies that we learned, and we had presentations from their top people at our face-to-face meetings and also digital events as well. And the example is Nielsen Company. Their former CFO, he developed very interesting business partnering model, which is highly centralized, but very efficient and effective. So it's both, I would say, business partnering, collaboration, but also organizational structure that is, as I already mentioned, very focused, and it combines the insights from 40 countries, 30 languages, 135 legal entities. But what is interesting, you know, with by changing their business partnering model and collaborating model, they managed to achieve incredible transformation in their company. And they done this without any consultants, only with internal resources. And they done this in quite a short period of time. Of course, they traveled a lot to all of those countries. So we move on, we go to the next one. And it's all about the process. When we talk about analytical transformation, process is important, even before we implement the system and analytics. I remember being at one of the conferences when it was a wonderful presentation about how company implemented the system. And then the presenter said, now we are ready to start to implement driver-based model. In reality, it all should be before or in parallel. I know so many examples when even the most flexible and leading system wouldn't help, but even enhance if the process is still a traditional process, when you still plan with last year plus X%, last year minus 10%, and so on and so forth. The example is this amazing company, Swiss Re, one of the biggest reinsurance group in the world. We collaborated with them on a number of meetings in London, and even had presentations about their Atlas project, $500 million investment, the full transformation, analytical transformation, not only FP&A, but finance function. And as the result of this amazing process, but also analytics, one of the biggest companies in the world is able to see the key 5 drivers practically to the level of the customers. So it's a very interesting case study. But from other side, if you don't have $500 million to invest in your transformation, another example is from Deutsche Bank Regia. So when they started their transformation, at first it was very enthusiastic and knowledgeable finance director who actually created the infrastructure and process around the key drivers that they needed for FP&A decision making. And it was their temporary solution. At the moment, they're running the full-scale solution, and it worked wonders in reality. So we go next. The next dimension is data and analytics. Obviously, we are talking about a near-time decision-making process, near real-time decision-making process, and everything here about leading analytical drivers. Yeah, and we are talking about predictive, prescriptive, multi-dimensional scenario planning, integrated model, 3-way model, not only profit and loss account, but cash flow and balance sheet. I really love this case study from Microsoft. You know, when I traveled the world, many people said, But how we can automate all of this? How we can use data and analytics if we are such a complex business, if we have so many different business models? It's practically impossible. And then came an amazing case study from Microsoft. At first, their leading finance person presented this case study at our FP&A Board opening event in Tokyo. Absolutely amazing. So the company, at the moment, their revenue forecasting, it's artificial intelligence, machine learning forecasting. It's not manual. Everywhere in the world, we looked at their examples in Benelux region, also in North America. They are very proud of their achievement. And you can imagine it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And if it was possible for them, it's a huge message for all of us in FP&A. You can see some of the examples. So it was huge resource, 2-3 weeks work in order to make this forecast. And practically it's less than 2 days. In some cases, it's push of the button. And just two people doing this at the moment, at least for Tokyo region, for Japan region. So we go into the next stage. Technology. A lot of talk about technology, a lot of different systems and processes. We already discussed that it's so important for us to understand the flexible process that we implement. I really like this Roche case study. The company not only implemented beyond budgeting process, so they practically abandoned, not practically, they completely abandoned their traditional budgeting, but also they implemented one of the leading technologies. And very quickly, it was the matter of weeks, not even months. And those are the results. We look at their case studies, and you can find those case studies actually on our website, the recordings. It was in Sweden, it was in Switzerland, and also we had presentation from their team in Australia as well. So generally speaking, this is from the Swiss Central European Office presentation. 190 days of company time saved and higher return on assets, return on investment, and of course, faster cycle as well. But the culture changed because beyond budgeting is there. We are moving on, we go to the next stage. This is the conclusion. I really would like to go into more details into this model. I would like to give you more details about each of the case. Because of the time, we can't do this. The purpose of my presentation was to demonstrate to you that you have the tool, you have the ability to identify where you are, and then to create your own steps, how to be there. What is important, this model is absolutely industry agnostic, company size agnostic. Obviously, you can use this how you would like to use. But a quick reminder to everyone. So digital FP&A success, it's a human intelligence, plus now a lot talk about artificial intelligence, and of course, clever processes as well. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to present to you. I'm ready for the next, I'm ready for the commentaries. Here we have 9 ranks, and we will talk about them at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Great presentation. And thank you for all those vivid examples of what leading stage company are doing and how quickly to kind of move to the next level as well. So at this point, I will invite the other panelists to come and join us and start by giving us some comments and some addition on Larissa's presentation. If I may start with Wojciech first, please. Wojciech, any comments from yourself?
Yes, thanks, Larissa. Very good example, and bringing this this maturity model into something tangible. And sometimes these kind of metrics they seem academic, but this one, if you really connect it with the right connection to what that means in reality, it's very good. I will cover points from this maturity model in my section, but I think one message there would be for everybody actually look into this and think how this can be looked at in your own company. Is it applicable to your business model, and whether it converts into the roadmap or selective choice of some of the elements of that. That's definitely a worth step.
Thank you, Wojciech. Can I ask David for some comments, please, David?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Larissa, for walking us through the presentation. As an advocate of technology, also myself, I really see the great advantages of integrating the state-of-art solutions that the systems now can have to help us to be more efficient, more effective in our planning, and the technology is definitely an enabler of those. I'm happy also to share some examples in a few minutes now.
Thank you, David. And finally, can I have some comments from Tim?
Sure. Thank you very much, Larissa. Indeed, I want to underline, let's say, 3 points of your key takeaways. And I think that what you already mentioned, that there's a human side, a technology side, a data analytics side, and also a process side of things. This is very relevant to all of us. And as David already said, I think we will also touch on some of those points in my session later on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, panelists. And Larissa, thank you for a great presentation. Let us now move and listen to our audience. So members, if you would like to just switch your webcam off, we move to our first polling question of the day, and I will just launch the first question. So ladies and gentlemen, please vote. Where do you believe your organization is on the FP&A maturity ladder? Is it at the basic stage? Is it at the developing stage? Is it at defined state, advanced, or leading state? So again, first option, basic. Second, developing. Third, define. Fourth, advanced. And fifth, leading stage. If I give you another 10 seconds to vote, please, and then we will close the voting. So is it at the basic state, developing state, defined state, advanced, or leading? So I will now close the voting, and I will now share the results with our members and yourself. So 23% said they are at the basic state, 42% developing, 23% defined, 8% at advanced, and 5% at leading stage. Can I ask Larissa to join us and give us some comments on the results, please? Larissa, over to you.
Thank you, Hans, and interesting results, actually. I can see how they are changing over the months, over the years. Look at this, we have 13% of companies that at this webinar at advanced and leading state. I definitely would like to talk to you. So if you have your insights to share with us, it would be wonderful. We still have almost quarter of the companies at 23%, but believe me, 3 or 2 years ago, this figure was higher. And I'm not surprised with developing state of 42 and defined 23. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larissa. So let me now hide this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for voting. Please do on the next session as well. And we will now move on to our following session, where we have Wojciech Porewski, talking to Vice President of Hitachi Energy, talking to us about the leading stage of the FP&A Maturity Model. Wojciech, over to you whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Hans. Hello, everybody. Again, I'm happy to be here in this session. As introduced by Hans, I'm a Vice President of Finance in the Hitachi Energy. Actually, Hitachi Energy is let's call it a new name, which was announced just a few days ago. Some of you might know Hitachi company, ABB Hitachi. This was previously a joint venture between Hitachi and ABB. Now it's a Hitachi Energy, since a few days already. The company is global. I mean, as you can see, 36,000 people globally present in 90 countries. This part of the business operates in the power grids, so providing equipment and solution in power grids. And at the moment, as you probably can see around, a lot of renewables, solar, hydro, wind, a lot of change, a lot of transformation in the power grids, with much smaller producers of the electricity versus what we've seen before with large gas turbines, steam turbines, businesses, and nuclear. So it's a lot of transformation, a lot of digitalization as well in that industry. If we can move, so basically, that's a based on this maturity model that Larissa elaborated nicely on. Here is basically a bit of a connection to that. I would like to share with you some of the lessons learned from both Hitachi, where I'm since March this year, but also from my previous experiences over 15 years in leadership roles in General Electric, Alstom, and also Trinseo in the chemical industry. So I covered a couple of different industries with different business models. So I would like to share some of those lessons learned across those different companies. Going back to this maturity model, and also some of the comments I will make throughout this presentation may seem like back to basics, as opposed to being really purely data-driven systems, complex view forward with the technology that is enabling. But sometimes we need to make a step backwards to make a big step forward. So with that maturity model, what is important that each of us actually take a look into this, think about how the whole model or individual elements of that model can be applied to your respective organization, being FP&A, but overall across the organization, to make this assessment and potentially a roadmap with the buy-in from the leadership. With that, sometimes we might be faced with the resources constraint, and also certain approach on from the company towards the role of the FPNA and the tools and the processes. But with all of that, we need to look in this model and see what are our key priorities, what are key objectives, and sometimes be selective. Targeting to be in a leading state for all the elements in a short or mid-term might be unrealistic, but of course we might be striving for that. But we are in a constraints of resources sometimes, so we need to prioritize well. So I grouped a bit differently, or grouped these pillars of the FP&A maturity model into 3 buckets. The first one is people, as I believe the people is probably the most important dimension, let's say in the organizations. So the first element is definitely how the company perceives the FP&A function and the analytics, how important that is. In some of the roles I have seen different approach, and in many cases when it was successful, the FP&A roles and FP&A leadership role in particular were people with a very high seniority. So quite often these people used to be even CFO of the businesses, only then to become the FP&A of the large business, which basically shows that you need to really have a strong business acumen, business understanding, and a lot of skill set, not only in the hard part but also in the soft part, to be able to be a true leader in the FP&A space. But overall, in the whole FP&A function, what is important is definitely understanding of the businesses. So the data that we use has the context, that we understand what we are talking about. So people need to go to sites, need to go to manufacturing plants. They need to really understand what they are talking about. Even if they have a fantastic data, if the data is without context, it's just numbers. Then there's an interesting theme of FP&A organization, whether it should be horizontally organized, that FP&A covered the topics across the finance board, or basically you can make it vertical. So for example, some part of P&A covers P&L, some of the balance sheet, some of the cash flow. This is also a workable solution. All depends on the size of the organization. All of this connects clearly to the business partnering. I am a strong believer of the strong business partnering of the FP&A. The FP&A is not a standalone function that sits somewhere else, but it's really not these days, maybe less physically, but more mentally co-located with the business, and it's very close to where the business is run. And of course, what is required is the skill set, training, and the mindset. Not only what, when, but also why. And when I'm talking about the skill set, is of course hard skills, especially now with the tools, digitization, programming, coding, and so forth. But there's a even more important part, which is the soft skill, being a partner, being someone who can coordinate well, and basically be really considered as the great partner. If we look now in the processes, I think there's also elements of the simplicity and efficiency, both of the systems, but also of the processes. What we want to gain is really time to be able to work with the data and not on the data. So this connects to a couple of themes that I have seen in the organization in terms of business governance. If the business governance is clear, well planned, and as an example, scheduling even the business reviews, forecasting reviews for the entire year. So basically, it's clearly in the agenda. People know what expectations are. They're coming prepared. This is actually a very important element of the efficient process. 80-20 rule applies to everything. So a good example is many people with a lot of data, they report in dollars, euros, but to the unit. But sometimes we need to think, can we report in thousands? Can we report in millions? And basically, what drives the outcomes, what drives the business is important. So sometimes more data is less insights, and less data, but critical data is definitely more insights. Standardization and optimization. There are some notions that he standardized dashboards, reports, certain outputs that basically is rigid and is not necessarily serving the business. So I think the right combination of the standard reports that basically you don't have to work on them, they are there and provide understandable data. It's plus some ad hoc analysis based on the data available in the system has been proven as successful in the examples that I have seen in the previous companies. And same if it comes to the business review. If every region or every business comes with a completely different business, and then you look at this and try to understand the meaning of that, it's good to standardize certain inputs and provide an element of the let's say specific business or region input, but have large degree of the standardization that you look at the data in a similar way. Another good example is the focus on controllable items. I just give you an example where in the business where we were driven by product lines and a bit of a dimension of the regions, we asked the business lines only focus really on the top line, on the orders, margins, sales and margins, and some of the functions that they are really influencing, like tendering, project management. When it comes to the functions like, I don't know, HR, IT, finance, we look at these functions completely on a global level, and they have been excluded from the P&L of the respective regions because this was not controllable by them. So there was no need for them to spend time on that. Budget versus rolling forecast clearly is an element that each company needs to address. Is it applicable for their business? In my part of the business so far, it has been traditional budgeting process because of the nature of the businesses, but then everybody should have an open mind to check if it's applicable to their business. If you go to the last part, which is the tools analytics, very, very important one. A lot of myth around that, a lot of thinking that without huge investments we cannot achieve much. It's not necessarily the case. Important thing is, as much as we can, make a data coming from the system. As an example, normally actual data comes from the system, but the forecast budget not always. There's always room for manual adjustments, correction. In most of the roles I have been, we have not allowed this to happen. Any corrections had to go to the system. So then when everybody talks about the forecast, we talk about the data coming from the system. The next few points connects to another system that we have been using in a commercial finance activity in the Salesforce. A lot of people thought complicated process, not data is of wrong quality. We cannot really use it, it's just too complicated. If you use it if you make one point of truth and combine it with the discipline, you can completely turn around the situation. From the situations where scattered use of the Salesforce in one of the businesses, we basically made this tool as the only point of truth. And during the weekly reviews across the whole organization, the reports were used directly from Salesforce. So if the data was not wrong, the data was not complete, not updated, you cannot blame the tool. You basically need to blame yourself that you didn't fix it. Of course, data quality is an important piece. But with this process of one point of truth and discipline, data quality becomes better and better. And to wrap it up, sometimes we think there's a myth of the tools which are underperforming. We don't believe these tools. Data is of wrong quality. We have to invest a lot. It's not necessarily the case. We just need to have a fresh and hard look on some of the systems which we are using and see whether they can be easily retrofitted and updated. So basically they can serve the purpose without multi-million investments. And the last point, data democratization. Make the data available to the users. Don't make it a hidden gem of the FP&A finance. Data should be available to the business to make meaningful decisions. So if I summarize those three pages, is basically strong FP&A as business partner, critical. Focus on the value-adding processes, but adapt them to business specifics. And then we have a presentation shortly on this process mining as well. Invest in tools, but doesn't have to be multi-million. Retrofit existing tools, how they can be used in a proper way. data is important, but it has to be quality and complete data. And simplify, standardize, optimize, digitize, gain space, gain time, so you can give insights, rather than being in the cycle on the right-hand side that we're always too busy to change the square wheels into round ones. We'll never get there if we don't pause and look at it. With that, I transfer back to Hans. Thank you.
Wojciech, thank you very much. Great presentation. And for me, the key thing is business governance. Please, if you can switch your webcam back on, Wojciech. So business governance was key for me. Expectation, focus on the controllables, standardization and optimization. And I think your last point that you made was around, which really resonated, was around underperforming tools myth. Absolutely spot on. Let me ask my fellow panelists to join me and give us some comments on Wojciech's presentation as well. Some quick comments, please. If I may start with yourself, Larissa.
Thank you so much, Hans. Wojciech, excellent insights from your business. Really very logical, and it's a lot of things for us to take away. Especially, I would like to emphasize the importance of data quality. We just recently finalized our FP&A trend survey, and when we ask people about the biggest problem, the biggest FP&A problems, 60% of those problems, they're connected with data. And obviously with modern technology, we can bring data now to FP&A and also make this cleaner easily. But it's a great message that start simple, standardize, optimize, use what you have. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Larissa. David, some comments from you, please.
Yes, sure. I took great takeouts from your presentation, such as the focus on the business partnering, the data democratization, and also the data quality. That was a topic popping up in your reviews, and the data accuracy was one of them. And above all, as you finished so well, that it's not about changing the square wheels into round ones. It's not about the right mindset to solve the problems. Thank you for your presentation. Brilliant.
Thank you, David. And Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Wojciech. Again, I also want to relate to that picture here and the point that you made also at the very beginning. Sometimes it might be beneficial to take a step back, right, and go back to the basics and fix those so that you can proceed quicker in the next steps.
Fantastic. Great comments. Thank you all very much. And Wojciech, great presentation. Thank you very much. Let us switch our webcam and move on to our next polling question. And I'm just about to launch that, which is, here we go. So what is the biggest barrier your organization faces to move to the next level of maturity? Is it in leadership? Is it in skill set? Is it in processes? Is it in data analytics, or is it in technology? So what are the biggest barriers? Where do you see those barriers? Leadership, skill set, processes, data analytics, or technology? If you can vote, please. Once again, I remind you, what is the biggest barrier your organization faces to move to the next level of maturity? Is it leadership? Is it within skill set? Is it processes? Is it data and analytics, or is it technology? So I'll give it another few seconds, and I will now close the voting, and I will now share it with our members. So 19% said leadership, 15% skill set, 19 processes, 26 data and analytics, and 21 technology. If I can ask Wojciech to give us some comments on this, please. Wojciech, what do we see here?
Yeah, I was actually curious to wait for the outcome of this poll, and actually I'm not surprised that the answers are so balanced. So it's almost, let's say, rounded to 20% each of the answers. So basically, for each of the companies that you're representing here, different things might be important. So it basically shows that all of these items are actually important and potentially could be a barrier in the organization. It's good to see also that it's not one of them which is completely outlying. So I'm happy to see that skill set is relatively low, which means that we have good people you have good people in the organization. And then data analytics being on the high end shows that we are still not fully there with availability of the right systems, right data. So with the skill set that that the organization have to provide, let's say, good insights.
Thank you very much. No, that's excellent comment. Thank you very much. Let us now hide this and we'll move on to our next presentation for today, which will be from David Moreira, CFO at Motesk. And David will talk to us about practical case study in FP&A transformation. Over to you, David.
Thank you all. Absolutely. So my name is David, as Hans just said, and I'm the CFO of Motesk, and I'm here today to share a few takeouts from my latest experience as an executive and leader across these 3 companies that you see here. And now I'm the CFO of Motesk, and just to explain a little bit what Motesk is, because we are a startup based in Cologne, Germany, and with the headquarters in Brooklyn, New York. And we provide data as a service in the area of biomechanics in 2 main areas currently: in healthcare, with our health tech solutions to solve problems in the orthopedics medical world. And another pillar or vertical that we have in our organization is e-commerce, where we use also biomechanics to revolutionize the way that, for example, the online companies can reduce their returns significantly. As a use case that just happened today, we just announced a major partnership with a leading platform of sports in the area of bikes, where we will provide a solution for reduction of returns in the bike world. So with that, we expect really to have a positive impact in the global community of cyclists and bike lovers. And without further ado, I'd like to jump into the presentation. So Hans, please. So we are a startup at Motesk, and with that, our stage is very at the beginning, is very early stage in the maturity model. And at the moment, we are really more focused on really having the right value drivers in place that will help us to take the business forward with the maximum success and hopefully profitability as well. So with that, we designed this strategy that you see here, where it touches the main business areas and levers that we find useful, such as the transaction manager section, where we have a clear plan to improve the way that we do the accounting, the way that we also report the right figures on the balance sheet and treasury areas, as well as the way that we report to external investors. So at the moment, just to share with you all, we are doing this manually in Excel with manual PowerPoints, even though we are supported by different ERP systems that we use from the accounting perspective in US and in Germany, where we are also located, as I mentioned. So this is our collection of main focus areas that we plan to, as soon as the business take off even further, to digitalize with the best solutions that will be at our range. And to add one important thing, even related to the previous poll that we just looked at, what will be the largest obstacles now for the digitalization, I will probably add also the price versus return. And sometimes in a very small startup, I must also say that probably the Excel is still a good tool to use due to its flexibility. But I'm here also to share other examples, as the following one that you will see at Audible. Audible is one of the Amazon companies, and in this case, as already exists for many, many years with a global scope, the maturity stage is something completely above the example of Motesk. And in the case of Audible, I'd like, for example, to share how the teams were being organized. So we had an FP&A organization across the world that included APAC region, Europe, US, and Canada, and also UK. And the state that Audible had was in transforming all these FP&A organization in a digital group. And with that, I give you, for example, an example of my daily meetings were basically always having some interaction with programmers that were helping us to develop automated ways how to report and how to control effectively our plans. And in addition to that, so we had also an ERP system that was helping us to automate more of our daily operations related to accounting. So this intermediate state was really focused on forward-looking models and to have seamless ways how to provide the right figures to senior leaders so they could have a more informed and fact-based decision processes. Moving ahead to the next example, I would like to share the Zalando case that so far, in all my experience, is at top, I would say, in the scale of digitization and maturity. If I compare with the previous two cases, and Zalando, when I worked there recently, was completely restructuring and transforming the already advanced digitization stage that I encountered when I started. So it's a large corporation with a lot of transactions, with about 40 million active users per year, with about 3,000 brands that have a very intense flow of merchandise, as this company sells online apparel across the European region of about 20 different countries. So the complexity of the whole systems was very high. The company was growing very fast with about 13,000 FTEs in its workforce. And the systems were also scattered across a large area of digital needs in the supply chain, because e-commerce has three main pillars. So the supply chain, the online or the platform itself to sell the goods, and in our case, the finance and business management areas. And to interconnect all these systems, all these needs in a seamless way was really a challenge, because at some point I counted about 20 or more different ERP systems that we were using, just let alone in finance. So the exercise was really to consolidate all these different ERP systems in one single source of truth that could provide afterwards meaningful and automated insights in a cloud with dashboards that will be easily read and tweaked to the needs of each leader or user across the organization. And that will help each of the users to steer effectively the data, as this company is heavily data-driven in everything that does, towards better, again, profitability, efficiency, and effectiveness of the use of its resources. And that was being done very efficiently. The whole process took about 1 year-ish, with about one tech team just related to finance of about 150 engineers, between software developers, product managers, program managers. So a huge team just dedicated to this finance transformation. But at the end, it was really worthy, and now the company is really taking off even further than ever was thought at the beginning, with a great success story. With that, I would like to summarize all these last and latest takeouts that I could learn from my experience across these three organizations. That I must say that these three organizations also are a bit biased, because they are all tech-focused organizations. I didn't want to go even back to the times that I was working more in the offline industry. But I think these three are really representative of the world we live in today. And in my opinion, I think really it's super important that there has to be in place a strategy for implementing technology in the company. And I'm not talking only about finance, but business, infrastructure, wherever the company is operating. If there is not a strategy to implement the right technologies, and I'm talking about a holistic solution, it's nowadays probably not the best approach. Secondly, related to the finance talent, I'd like to share that, for example, when I had my interviews to work for Audible as a finance director for Europe, that I was asked to do one of the tests was a SQL simple query that I had to answer, and that was already some years ago, but represents very well that companies now need as even executives with skills above Excel management. And definitely business partnering, there is not much thing more to talk about, because if we don't have the right communication skills, if we are not able to convey the message effectively to external parties, but also internally across teams, is probably something that well, can become a problem. So this is fundamental, as well as continuous focus on improvement of processes and towards a lean mindset, where we bring the best efficiency and effectiveness to our organizations. And this was my nutshell presentation to all of you.
Thank you very much, David. Great presentation. And I think the key thing I can take out from this is, you know, quite a lot of great examples, especially on your maturity model, different maturity model. So I'd like to ask the different panelists to join us now and give us some comments, please. So members of the panel, if you would like to join us, please. If I can start with Larissa. Larissa, comments from yourself?
Thank you, Hans. David, excellent presentation. An amazing experience. So you worked for companies that are at different ladders of maturity, and what an experience now for this startup company. I really like those lessons learned, and to me this finance talent, FP&A talent especially, it's still very difficult to find at the moment. So the statistic that we see that 80% of CFOs, they say that it's one of the biggest problems to find such people. Yeah. Also, they're becoming definitely strategic and influential. We've seen situations when even junior analysts with analytical insights could stop the board of directors meetings. It was happening. So thank you for reminding us about this, and technology strategy, definitely it's important. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Larissa. Wojciech, can I have some comments from you, please?
Sure. No, David, great presentation. And you know, one comment from my side here would be that I wish that the companies outside of the tech space could also invest so much in the in the respective engineers and data scientists to basically change the the data managing and data processes landscape to move to really a digital along this digital transformation to a different level. And an interesting piece about skills, that while the soft skills is very important, I think going forward, the hard skills, the programming, being savvy with the systems, with the databases, is a necessity, if it's within FP&A function or other functions. So sometimes people need to rediscover themselves that, soft skills being important, but they need to continuously rediscover themselves so they don't become, dinosaurs in that space.
Thank you very much. And finally, Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much, David, for this great presentation. And as everyone already commented on the topic of finance talent, I maybe also want to highlight how important technology became nowadays. And that maybe, and that's also my personal opinion, sometimes, although all the other points are very important, sometimes a little bit of more investments toward the foundation and the technology should be made.
Brilliant. Thank you very much all, and thank you very much, David, for a great presentation. Before we move on to our next polling question, I would like to ask the audience, please keep sending your questions. We've got lots of questions and great session at the end. So members, if you switch your webcam off, let us launch the third polling question of the day, which is around, so where do you think your organization will invest next? Where is that big investment going to come as far as you're concerned? Is it under the leadership sort of category, so learning around leadership skills? What about skill set, just general skill set? Processes, data and analytics, technology? So please vote. Is it around leadership? Is it around skill set, so the functional skill set? Is it around processes? Is it around data and analytics? Or is it around technology? If you can vote, please. I'll give it another few seconds, and I am now going to close and share it with. So 2% said around leadership, 7% around skill set, 9% around processes, 36% around data and technology, data and analytics, 47% on technology. David, can we have some comments from you on this?
Absolutely. I would also vote the same way, actually, because technology shall be really the first priority of everyone's world, not only in finance, but everywhere in the company. And the technology as an enabler of efficiencies is definitely, for me, where the companies shall invest first, but also data analytics and processes. So data analytics, I'm always trying to advocate that companies that I work for have to have a data-driven mindset globally, where everyone has data in front to help to steer the business more efficiently and to have fact-based decision processes. And last but not least, the processes. We have here Tim with us with his data mining presentation that I'm looking forward, and it's definitely an area, as well as continuous improvement together with data processes, that will help every company, small and large companies, to achieve success for sure.
Thank you very much, David. Let us now hide this and let us move on to our next session, which is from Tim. David, you're still on the webcam. So Tim will present to us on, of course, Tim is process mining lead at Productivity Germany. Will talk to us about how we enhance processes for moving your maturity model. So Tim, over to you when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hans. And yes, I want to briefly introduce the topic of process mining to you. And so basically, because process mining is the state-of-the-art approach for process optimization. And so we zoom in a little bit on the dimension of processes, although process mining also supports the maturity in the areas of data analytics and technology. But for now, we focus on the dimension of processes. And so what is process mining and how was it developed? Well, in the early 2000s, process mining came out of academia. It was developed in Eindhoven. And process mining uses data in our IT systems, data that is anyway already available, to provide transparency into the processes so that we can take insights and actions for process improvements out of the data. And we see an example on the bottom left corner, a screenshot. This is basically the information, the data is used out of the IT systems to recreate the processes, how they have been really executed in reality. And then in the past 10, 12 years, process mining market developed, and further tools have been developed. A lot of vendors appeared and disappeared and so on and so forth. But there were also a lot of great successes how process mining helped the transformation of organizations towards a data-driven management. And in the past 2 or 3 years, process mining evolved into what I call here execution management. So it really integrates directly with operational processes, for example, through the integration of workflow systems or automation capabilities. so that we now can trigger directly actions out of the data and really help improving processes immediately. But process mining is not only a tool or a solution, it also comes with an approach and with a mindset. And when we move on to the next slide, I brought one example of such a methodology and such an approach here, which is called the path to value. And very often when process mining is introduced into the organizations, this path to value is followed. And the key difference to some other project is that it 100% focuses always on value. So we identify in the framing phase different process improvement opportunities. We qualify and quantify them. We analyze the root causes behind certain issues and bottlenecks. And with all the data that we already have available, we can really build solid business cases and then make very smart decisions and prioritize those business cases. Where do we want to take action? Where do we want to improve our processes? And is it really worth it? What is the value behind it? And after that, of course, we take this information, we take this basis for the realization phase. We implement action recommendations. Again, a lot of the process mining platforms and solutions support immediate automations, for example. But there can also be other kinds of actions, of course, policy changes, IT system adaptations, and so on. And when we then come to the sustain phase after the implementation of certain process improvements, process mining is also used to keep track. We can monitor those KPIs. Has really something improved in our process, or do we need to take further action and then basically restart into this circle again with the framing phase. So when we move on to the next slide, then this what does it have to do with FPNA? And of course, process mining is very often being introduced first or it's very relevant for all finance processes. And most organizations actually start with accounts receivables or accounts payable processes. But it also impacts FP&A functions, right? So increased process standardization leads to a more stable process environment, and hence all the assumptions and all the figures that flow into forecasting, for example, are way more accurate and more reliable. And also process improvements, again, because we make them very quantifiable during the business case phase of a project, they usually free up either personnel, or they increase working capital, for example, or they reduce costs. So the impact of those process improvements are often so significant that they need to be respected and recognized by the FP&A function. And especially during the past 2 or 3 years, since process mining became way more integrated into the operational management and operational functions, it also can ensure that certain plans or strategies are immediately reflected in the reality, right? If we, for example, change our strategic focus and say, well, we need to increase our working capital or whatever, we can immediately steer this with the help of process mining and, for example, reprioritize how invoices are being processed and hence steer the business accordingly, or the certain processes accordingly. And of course, we have also in the process mining solutions come with process simulation features. So if we detect bottlenecks, we can think that run simulations from a process perspective and think about what impact does it have if we add further resources or if we reduce resources for certain process steps. And there are countless examples available during the past few years where process mining had a large impact in organizations around the globe and for all different kinds of companies. And again, since process mining is process agnostic, so we can apply it to different kinds of processes, it really is relevant for each organization, but especially for the finance processes. And of course, you can also apply it to FP&A processes such as forecasting, if they are implemented or if they are executed in IT systems and the data is available, right? If you, as David promoted, do the forecasting in an Excel sheet, it might be difficult to apply process mining. So if we move on to the next slide, my key takeaways are, right, so process mining is a important element in my perspective for a successful analytical transformation, but it's not about process mining as a tool or as a solution alone. It's about the value-focused approach that comes with it usually. And one example, my broader frame, realize, sustain framework. And my second key takeaway or recommendation is, if you haven't done that yet, take a closer look at process mining and how it can help you to improve your processes. With that, thank you very much, and back to Hans.
Tim, thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. Of course, thank you for sharing the example, but thank you for sharing the framework, which I really love and admire. And you can put it to any process that you're looking at: frame, realize, and sustain. So thank you very much for that. Can I ask my fellow panelists to come and join me and give us some insight into Tim's presentation and add anything they would like to? If I may start with yourself, Larissa, please.
Thank you, Hans. Tim, excellent presentation. It's a great reminder for us that we should start from processes. Otherwise, technology can emphasize our inefficiencies. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Wojciech, comments from yourself, please.
Yeah, I would say similar comments. Of course, in our daily activities, we look at the processes, how we can improve them. But I sense sometimes we don't cover the full spectrum of the elements of this process. And in order to really drive value from some of these process optimization, we need to take a holistic end-to-end look, and also be in a position to measure that and how it converts to a certain achievement of, like a DPO increase or basically cash generation. So something that is, analyzing the process with the view of what we want to achieve out of that. And sometimes we improve the processes, but we don't measure that. So I think this element of how to measure this process improvement is also very critical. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. David, your comment, please.
Yes, I always see process mining going hand in hand with continuous improvement. And I had that experience in one of the companies that I work for, where we were about 50 people in the FP&A team. And there were different groups within this FP&A team, with the typical business partnering, master planning, data science, reporting, and the two groups. One of them really focus on continuous improvement with black belts, green belts, and another one working closely with data mining and process mining. And it was incredibly powerful to watch this tool bringing results in a few minutes across thousands and thousands of transactions. So I'm really advocating process mining in the modern world, for sure. Thank you, Tim.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, panelists. And thank you, Tim, for great presentation. Let us now move on and listen to what the panel have got to, the audience have got to say in the last polling question of the day. If we may all switch our webcam, and I will now launch the last polling question of the day, which is around, do you currently use process mining or any other continuous process improvement approach in your organization? Yes, they are a key part of our process improvement strategy. No, we don't, but we have planned to do so. Or C, no, we do not, and do not plan to implement any such strategy for process mining. So if you can vote, please, very quickly. Yes, the answer to question A is yes, they are a key part of our process improvement strategy. No, we don't have any plans, but we will implement some shortly. And C, no, we do not, and there's no plan to implement anything. I will now close the voting, and I will now share the answers with our audience. So 22% said yes, they are a key part of our process improvement. 46% said they don't have any, but they will be implementing some shortly. And 32% said there's no plan to implement anything. Tim, what is your point of view on what we're seeing here?
Yeah, that's indeed very interesting, and I'm a little bit surprised that 32% do not plan to implement it in the future, because we see in general there's a large drive, as David also mentioned it, towards using process mining in general, or similar data-driven approaches for continuous process improvement. So interesting.
Absolutely, and if you look at, there's massive opportunities there that we should all take and look at. So for those who are not doing it, you really need to think about it. Now, let me hide this, but at the same time, let me ask my audience to please keep sending your questions. We've got a great Q&A session waiting for you at the end. Please keep sending your questions. We will answer a few of them today. If we can't, we will answer them all via email anyway. So it is now a good time to do our key conclusion, which is a very quick 30-second key conclusion from each one of our panelists. So panelists, if you can join me on the webcam, please. And we will go around the house and ask Larissa for one key conclusion on this topic.
Thank you. My key takeaway for today is start small, think big. Even small improvement in your processes or models or the way how people collaborate can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Wojciech, your quick conclusion?
Yeah, similar. Sometimes back to basics, but at the same time, importance of the process and tools efficiency, skills, both in the hard direction, but also soft skills direction, very important, and also overall the criticality of the role of the FPNA, which still sometimes is not yet seen where it should be.
Brilliant. David, your quick conclusion, please.
My quick conclusion is based on my guiding principles that I like to wrap up again. So having a proper technology strategy, the right finance talent in place, also the right finance business partnering mindset, have the processes and continuous improvement initiatives to improve the business, and have a lean mindset in everything we do towards cost efficiency and effectiveness.
Thank you. And finally, Tim, quick conclusion from you?
Yes, thank you very much. And I think I repeat myself only a little bit, because we always see this very key important message. It's about people, technology, data analytics, and processes. And all of them are very important. But if I had to choose one, it would be processes.
Thank you very much, guys. And what I would like to share with yourself as well as the others is just the 9 rungs that Larissa shared earlier on. It's a cycle, so think about the 9 steps that we have here: leadership, data quality, collaboration, key drivers, driver-based planning, integrated system, automation of routine, real-time scenario, and of course it all wraps up in that sort of analytic-based decision making. Of course, I'm not going to go into any detail given the time constraint we have today, and this brings us nicely on to our Q&A session for today, where we've got fantastic questions for our panelists, but also just a quick reminder to our attendees, please keep sending your questions. We will answer all of them, some of them via live and most of them via email, very definitely all of them. So our first question goes to you, Larissa. Thank you for sharing what the leading company are doing in the FP&A maturity model and the leading state. What will your advice be to a small company who doesn't have much of a resource in terms of moving to the next step in that maturity model?
It's a great question. Obviously, for the small companies, we are likely not to have a separate FP&A function. And it's very likely that it would be accounting department and controlling, and probably CFO and finance director in one place, if it's very small company. So what would be my advice? Always think from the language of drivers. Don't so much look at the history. Historic analysis is important, but for a smaller company, obviously, Excel could be good. I would say that our observation that medium-sized companies that are over 100 million in turnover or 200 million in turnover, this is when they start to need the tools and all of those maturity model principles.
Thank you very much, Larissa. Great insight. Thank you very much. Our second question, of course, goes to Wojciech. Wojciech, you talked about, thank you for sharing your personal experience. How is your company working with data scientists? Are they hired internally, externally, and data architects and analysts? What is your thought on that?
Yeah. We are currently in the major transformation journey with the implementation of the global SAP solution. So we have a lot of people, both from internal resources coming from the business, from FP&A, from other parts of finance and IT, but also a combination of external consultants who are supporting us in driving that transformation. This is one pillar, and the second pillar where we are at, we are also going through a review of the landscape of the applications and the IT tools. Basically, is a bit of legacy. So narrowing this down and optimizing both from efficiency, cost perspective, and I'd say putting most of it under one platform. So to answer the question, we are working there, but we are, let's say, now in this major step towards one global system currently.
Thank you, Wojciech, and great answer there is that it always depends on the case study, doesn't it? You know, for quick wins and not to be able to spend too much money, you could always go out there and get the resource, do the project, and then move on from there. But if you have the resource and you can recruit them internally, you do so as well. So excellent. Thank you very much there. David is our next panelist to answer the next question. How do you see the technology and skills evolving in general in your current company, given the state and the maturity of Motesk?
So Motesk is a pure online tech-driven company. So we have a vast majority of current employees that are data scientists or biomechanics engineers, or very experts in, for example, engineering electronics. So our company has a vast majority of workers that are really data and engineering focused. So we are still a startup, and as a startup where we want to focus on our core capabilities, we currently externalized all the accounting functions. So we have external accounting provider in Germany, another accounting provider in the US, and with that, I think we have the current perfect setup in our case. Moving forward, once the revenues will start to be at a level that we consider that will be more efficient and better for us to bring in-house those functions, we will definitely hire someone that is highly skilled in terms of not only finance and accounting, but also technology. And for me, it will, for example, be really important that people that we'll hire today will be specialized, for example, in creating automated dashboards, and that will be comfortable also to work, for example, with programming high-level languages such as Python, or even able to build a simple API to translate a Python function into a dashboard. But eventually, just a simple overview and knowledge about those languages will be already sufficient, because above all, we'll not be looking at finance experts that will be also programmers, but someone that will be able also to lead programmers and to give them the proper requirements so the tools could be built efficiently and serve the business according to our needs. So those will be the skill sets that I will be looking at when the team expands significantly in-house.
Absolutely, thank you for that. And you could see that the vision is there, and you're looking forward as to what are the next step. You know, how when we ramp up revenue, etc. What do we need to do? So great insight there. Thank you very much for that. Our last question is, of course, to Tim. And Tim, very sort of similar question that you know, we went to Larissa. Is, of course, you talked about the process mining, and most of the processes is around where there's big data, there's big sets of information. But how about a small company, and how would you go about doing any sort of process mining within a small company?
Yeah, I think process mining is applicable for all sizes of organizations. It's more about the transactions that are really happening, right? If I only I don't know, if I sell very large specialized machines and I sell 3 of those every year, it does not make sense to apply process mining to it, right? But if I have a high frequency, if I sell something online and I have thousands of transactions a day, even for small businesses, it can a lot of value to be gained from process mining there.
Yeah, and I think your framework you used as well is very much relevant to what we in FP&A can use for looking at our daily processes. You know, we could start to think about that with our budgeting, with our forecasting, and any other processes we use, because that's a fantastic framework you've shared with us. So thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, our Q&A session concludes here, but please keep sending your questions. We will answer them via email, absolutely. I've only got a few more slides to go, so please stay with us. And members of the panel, you can stay on the webcam as well. So a quick slide as to what's coming up next. So a few events for your diary. We've got Surfing Uncertainty with Continuous Planning, FP&A Trends webinar, November the 9th. We've got Digital Central European FP&A Board on key skills and capabilities for next decade. Really interesting subject. Put the time in your diary, 7th of December. A good time to say thank you to our sponsor, Unit 4, and our recruitment partner, Robert Half. But a big thank you to our members of the panel who took the time out to present and give us their great insight, but also answer great questions as well. So members of the panel, thank you very much. And a good time to also thank our attendees for participating, but also for giving us their insight on the polling question as well. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for participating. And then this is the time where we say goodbye, but also look forward to connecting with you via all of these means. Please, when I close the webinar in a few seconds, please stay on and give us your feedback. There will be a feedback pop-up form around how well we did, but also what would you like to hear next time. So it is now a good time for me to say thank you very much for attending. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening. And from us all, thank you very much and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.